Okay, welcome everybody to the 2020 Annual General Meeting of the Union Bay Improvement District. Let's have a call to order here. I welcome everybody that's joined us both in person and on our live stream, we should have a number of people watching us on YouTube for the first time, I think, ever. So within the call to order, I do want to just point out that all attendees are advised that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded to make sure you're comfortable with that. I would add something that's not on the agenda statement, but please do wear your masks except when speaking. And there will be an opportunity for landowners to ask questions at the end of the meeting, and microphones will be available, sanitized microphones will be available for you to ask questions. I'd like to start by making introductions of some people who are in the room. I think I'll start with the board. I think you all know Trustee Rick Bitton, Trustee Ted Haroldson, Trustee Susanna Calger. I'm Ian Monroe. As we go around the room, Gary Nason is our consultant administrator. Gary has been involved with UBID over the last couple of years and is currently assisting us with some of the more advanced governance and electoral and legislative type processes and decisions, supporting Janice Swanson, who's next around, who is our acting administrator. Dan McGill, our superintendent of public works, and Ian Ham, our fire chief. On this side over here, we have Graham Roberts, who is with Myers Norris Penny, our external auditors. And then in the front row here, we have John France, who is a trustee-elect acclaimed, who will be joining the board next week. And towards the back is Yves Goudreau, who is also a trustee-elect acclaimed, who will be joining the board next week. I think that's it for introductions. So let's just have a look at the meeting agenda and see if there's any questions with the agenda. Otherwise, can we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda as presented.
A second? All in favor? Okay, so second item on the agenda is to review the minutes from the 2019 Annual General Meeting, which was held last year, Monday, June 3rd, in this building. So we have that set of minutes that are in the package. So if we'd all take a moment just to review and ensure that they are accurate and complete. I know this may be difficult for some, as some weren't here for that meeting.
Just a question. At that meeting, at that annual general meeting, there was a large number of landowner questions that were actually answered. They're not part of the minutes? Gary, you were actually there for that meeting.
I was, Mr. Chair, you're correct. There was a large number of questions which took a large preponderance of the meeting. I'm not sure what the practices have been in regards to whether those questions are itemized in the minutes and responses itemized in the minutes, but I do know that we recorded them, Mr. Barry and myself.
Yeah.
And in some cases, we attempted to answer them, or we deferred to some of the board members who provided answers. But then we sent all of those questions to the administrator at the time. And it's my understanding that he did subsequently respond to those questions in the form of written responses.
Yes. I remember seeing a long list of questions and written responses. Yeah. And it was very unusual, as you might recall, situation. I feel that it would be important to include it's already printed up, but to include those questions and answers, because they were very much part of that meeting.
So a suggestion to include the questions and answers from that meeting as part
Yeah.
of the minute record.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation, just because it was so controversial. There were a lot of, and we took the time to answer them in depth and in detail. So I feel that would reflect the annual general meeting.
Administrator Swanson or Nason, do we have that record that we can commit to publishing it, or?
I'm looking at my notes, actually, from that meeting, and I do have the questions in my notes. Now, they were forwarded to the administrator of the days after the meeting, and I can certainly discuss with Ms. Swanson whether there's a record of those in your offices.
I do have, I just didn't bring it with me, not thinking it would be needed. I do have,
Could you speak into the microphone,
Sorry.
please, so we can all hear?
I do have a list of those questions and the answers that were not handwritten. They were in printed form. So I'm more than happy to, and I didn't bring them with me, unfortunately.
So what I'm hearing is that there's a suggestion to amend the motion to accept the minutes as published, but including the results of the questions and answers
Yes,
that were published after that meeting.
yeah.
Okay. Can I have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second it.
Any other debate? Any other questions about that?
On a point of order, normally minutes do not require that, but again, I understand what trustee Colvin is saying, etc. Is regarding that meeting, I would ask for your advice on whether you should or shouldn't.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, what I can do certainly is follow up with the acting administrator, try to locate the record of those questions. Trustee Kelger indicates that she does have that record, so I'm pretty comfortable in saying that they were forwarded to the administrator, and I believe responses were prepared. The issue is just locating those, distributing them to all members of the board, and distributing them to or making them available to the public. We can certainly do that. It's really your practice whether or not individual questions are actually itemized in the minutes, but my understanding it has been the practice for quite some time for those questions to be recorded, subsequently responded to, and then those responses made available to the public either on the website or in some form.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Bitton, do you have any comments?
Nope, that's good.
My personal view is more transparency is better, and if these questions have been asked and answered and publicized already, there's very little risk associated with doing so. So we have a motion that has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, so we are now moving into reports. The first report is the chairperson's report, which I guess is me. And for me, it was quite a unique experience to prepare this report, given that the report is largely addressing 2019, and I didn't join this board until the very end of that year. But I am aware of what has transpired over that year, and I think it was quite an interesting year to work through. There was a number of very significant events. First and foremost, and the most immediate impact was the bringing on stream of our water plant. While that didn't happen in fiscal 2019, it happened before the date this AGM should have happened. And water was streaming into our system in April of 2019. So that was a significant project. Key contributions from Dan McGill and his team in making that happen. And I'd say thank you from all of the landowners for driving such a great project through. There's, with all projects, there tends to be a few hiccups along the way, and ours seemed to happen right at the very end with decommissioning or cut over from the old plant to the new plant, but largely very successful, entirely successful, and largely on budget and on schedule. So well done job. We've been subsequently received permits from Vancouver Island Health, and I think you've all seen reports on the quality of water that comes out of that system, where turbidity has dropped from numbers well above the 1 turbidity unit requiring boiling down to, I think it was 0.03 the last time through. So fantastic job on that. The most important project for the longer term future of UBID is really the governance study. And that governance study was commenced in 2000, the groundwork for that governance study was laid in 2019. And it was, there was some decisions to be made around that, where, originally a letter was sent from the board to the ministry asking for 3 options to be studied. And those 3 options would have been conversion to the regional district, incorporation as a municipality, or continuing to operate as an improvement district. And at that time, the ministry responded back with a letter saying that they were not in support of including a study of incorporation due to the complexity of that endeavor, and also, referring to the maturity, or maybe that's not the right word, but the development of the overall governance practices within UBID, and that some additional work would be required before that could be considered. So on receipt of that letter, and I'm not sure I got the words exactly right there, but on the receipt of that letter, the board reconsidered, and a letter was then sent back to the ministry that said we will accept a study. That study's only 2 options, which would be conversion to the CBRD or remaining as an improvement district, but also recognizing that in the event that the vote was to remain an improvement district, that the municipality option remain on the table. So that letter was accepted by the ministry, and the ministry funded the project in 2019. And so the 2020 has been the year where the work has been done to conduct that governance study, and we will see the fruits of that over the next few weeks here. The report is being finalized as we speak, or the final draft is being finalized as we speak, which will then prepare it for public consultation and input on the process. So that was a big piece of work in 2019 as well. The third thing I really wanted to mention was, sort of the makeover or the restructuring of the fire department, which resulted in the appointment of our current Chief Ham and our current Deputy Chief McGregor. They've done a great job rebuilding the fire department back up, where we were down to approximately 12, I think. We were at the limits of where certification of the department was at risk. And I think we have now built our force back up to, is it 20, Chief Ham? And great training work going on, lots of work around COVID safety and all those sorts of things. So I appreciate the work and how that's been pulled together for us. We also worked as a board to increase our governance practices and our use of rules of order. And Gary Nason was a big part of that with his colleague Jerry Berry. And you may recall that they were at this annual general meeting last year in supporting that process. And, I've been proud of the board in terms of the way we've come together and really worked through differences of opinions and strong opinions and passions and really put it on the table together and been able to make some decisions that were difficult and considered. And, so I think that work that was laid in 2019 was a really, really important part of how this board has operated over the last 8 months. Our financial situation remains on firm ground. You'll hear from our auditors later on where they can tell you if I'm telling you the truth or not. But I feel it's a very strong financial position that we're in. The reserves are appropriate for the position we're in. Assets age and we need to set money aside, and all those things seem to be in good shape. The one issue that we've identified and are working on now is delinquent accounts. In that we have parcel taxes and water tolls that are delinquent at a level that's uncomfortable. So there are collection activities going on right now, and we request all landowners to say, please be current on your accounts. It makes the management of the improvement district that much easier, and cash flows and all those kinds of things to manage them. And the last thing that's in my report as to events of note in 2019 was that the staff of the Union Bay Improvement District voted to certify as a union, and that was with CUPE Union 556. And that collective bargaining process is underway in 2020 and nearing a conclusion, we believe, and more on that as that gets completed. In terms of thank yous, there were people that moved on from the board last year that I'd like to take an opportunity to thank. That was Glenn Loxham and Peter Jakes had their terms expire in 2019. So I would say thank you to them.
Only one expired, Glenn Loxham's position, he lost in the election.
His position expired, and so he did not return to the board because he had to seek re-election. So I think that's a reasonably true statement that he was no longer on the board. Paul Healy and Hein Vandenberg, who were elected in 2019, resigned from the board for personal reasons, but we also thank them for their dedication, their service that they brought to the table and their desire to help Union Bay. So I would also say thank you to new and re-elected trustees. So John France, Yves Goudreau, and Susanna Calger for, again, committing to the support of the community. It's appreciated, and it's an important role. Like this, there's nothing more important to us, I think, than our water and fire services, right? So we need people that are willing to stand up and take it on, and I appreciate you guys for doing that. From a staff perspective, they all deserve our appreciation. I've mentioned the water plant already. I've mentioned the fire department. Our administrative team is behind the scenes of all of that, making sure it runs smoothly and bills get out and everything is that the business needs is purchased, and we run our governance properly and make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So thank you to Janice and Lindsay for the work they do in supporting us in there. And thank you, Gary, for signing up to help us this year as well. As a board, I think, we've tried to be as transparent as we could be, and we'll continue to try to do that despite this pandemic. It's been a difficult time for us to be able to do that, where we were given guidance from the ministry to close off meetings, to postpone elections and AGMs. There's been subsequent postings of information such as, holding capability of holding electronic meetings because they weren't really something that was mentioned before. And we've chosen not to do that, mostly because of complexity and the difficulty doing that on a monthly basis to get that going. But, we've tried to then counter that by putting cow meeting videos online and getting our videos back and going well for the board meetings and trying to publish all questions and those sorts of things. So we'll continue to try to do that through 2020. The remainder of 2020 is going to be focused on completing the governance review and taking that into a consultative process with landowners. In order for any decision to be made on the governance review, there will need to be a demonstration of strong support from landowners, whichever way we choose to go. And, you know, how that happens right now, you know, my personal preference would be for that to happen in the strongest way possible, which would be a referendum. But all of these things need to be determined as we navigate the waters of a pandemic. So that concludes my report. Next, I don't know if we want to, the agenda says we'll accept all the reports at the same time, so perhaps we'll just go through them all and pick them up one at a time. So Acting Administrator Swanson, will you please go through your report?
Study and the newsletter is on the website now. So the final copy we've got is on the website, so you can view it. It's on the opening page and in the admin post, so you'd get a reminder, an email reminder that it's been posted. So, so basically I took over this position July 2nd of 2020. So I haven't been in the position for a lot of time. So, and I also can't speak to the administrative role prior to when I was in this role. So, but I can speak to the areas that I believe are priorities. And collections is on the top of the list. And I gave some details that's in the report as the progress we're making. There's some really old outstanding accounts, and I can't remember how many years ago we issued some 24-hour water disconnection notices, but people pay once you do it, so I'm anticipating people are going to be paying. And the parcel tax, ever since I've been with Union Bay, I have not done any collection letters for parcel tax. So looking back, it looked like it wasn't done since 2016. So we're moving on that. So we've got a bunch of letters, and there's less of a process to go through. There's like a 4-step process when you're collecting utility bill arrears, but for parcel tax, it's different. It's much quicker. So we're just proceeding down that process right now. I've spent a lot of time preparing for this AGM because we've had to have a COVID safety plan in place, and we have to abide by the protocols for WCB as well. So I think we've done a good job. We'll see. We'll see if it's on the website. So the water treatment plant, there was a lot of talk at the last AGM about the interest rates, and there's still a construction loan now, so we're in the process of getting the information together to present options for conversion of the loan. So that will be presented to the trustees, and then they'll make a decision. So we've been working closely with the working group for the conversion study. Point E. We've been working through the challenges of our new software, iCity accounting, and I think we're 2 years now, and we're just starting to get it working well, so that's good. And due to COVID restrictions, we had to have our audit performed remotely, which was the first time for me. And I was working from my home office too, so I wasn't even in the office. Lindsay was on her own in there, so Graham could probably speak more to the challenges of that process. So another big issue for us is we've been working on trying to secure an office for the water treatment plant. So it was in the original scope of work, and it was to be a detached office, and that hasn't been done. And it's an issue. It's a huge issue for WCB and for COVID protocols. You know, we have to have a detached office that's suitable for the employees. So we've been working hard at sourcing a suitable structure. So that's what we're doing now. The safety plan, the COVID safety plan, I've got it in draft format, and it's going to be completed by the end of September. And then we also, Sonia prepared an article about the water treatment plant. Pretty well most of the questions that people phone and ask is on the website in this article, so people should be able to get all the information that they need about the water treatment plant. And that's my report.
Good evening, everybody. It's been a while since I've been to an AGM, so I'd like to thank the board for inviting me out here and everybody else that showed up. That's great. I know we're a little bit low on numbers, but we got to get her done. So here she goes. I'm just going to roll through this. You guys have it in your hands. So the Union Bay water system went through a total of 156,000 cubic meters of water in 2019, which basically is about 19% of the volume we're allowed to take out of the lake. So we're just, you know, kind of a drop in the bucket in a good way of putting it. The water system is constantly sampled for turbidity and chlorine 24/7 from online analyzers. The Ministry of Health samples are taken from raw water and the distribution system 3 days a week. All of the samples from the distribution system were negative in 2019, sent by VHA to their lab. It was a busier year for new houses in Union Bay this year, or 2019. With 10 new service connections. These are 3/4 and 1 inch services that are hot tapped into the main line and trenched to the property line where they are metered. There were 19 water leak repairs in the district in 2019, and some very large and some able to hand dig. Some very large leaks require excavators, vac trucks, dump trucks, and flaggers. We had 7 of these leaks in 2019, and the asbestos pipe failure is to blame, as well as poor construction methods 50 plus years ago when installed. The smaller leaks are fixed by renting a mini excavator and also hand digging the real small leaks. The leaks come from asbestos cement pipe failure, corporation stop failures, service line splits, holes in the main lines, failing copper, poly and PVC pipes, and gasketed pipe failures. The lake did really well last year, staying on level 1 water restrictions and only going down 58 centimeters below the spillway on September 13th. The rains came slowly and saturated the forest for a month before the lake started to overflow on October 23rd. Then the heavier rains came, and on December 31st, we went to boil notice as the turbidity went above 1 NTU. The water treatment plant has been running now for, well, at this point was a month, but now we're about 6 months in, and is producing great water. The turbidity is 0.02. An exact number is 0.26, or the other filter is about 0.3. And a pH of 7.5. We are providing Island Health with monthly reports of all the parameters set by the operating permit, which we received on June 11th. The plant is classified as a water treatment facility 2 by the governing body Environmental Operator Certificate Program. The plant is operated by certified operators, and they will continue to maintain and upgrade their certifications by attending classes and seminars. This requires an extensive amount of training every year, and also exams to advance from an operator in training to a level 3 operator. On staff, we currently have 1 level 3 operator, 1 level 1 operator, and an operator in training. I would like to thank the board and the staff for all the time and effort they put in this year, and for a great job well done. Thank you.
As a trustee, am I allowed to ask a question?
Yes, you may ask a question. Can you use your microphone, please?
Sure. Thank you. I'm just confused, given the fact that we've just got the conversion study and it's been published as of today. I'm confused with the statement we're using 19% of our total license from Langley Lake, when the conversion study indicates that our current water treatment plant, our new water treatment plant, is operating. We can accommodate about 100 more homes. So I'm just, without building and adding on to our current water treatment plant. So could you explain how those two figures work together?
Yes, basically they're two completely separate things. The license from the lake is 800 some odd thousand gallons or cubic meters that we're allowed to take from the lake. We're only using 19% of that lake volume. The water treatment plant right now is running, we had some phenomenal numbers. Mother's Day this year, we went through more water than I've ever seen ever. So everybody at home added up, the plant was running at about 75%. So, you know, we've had some big water usage days in this COVID, and that's what I blame for it. I mean, kids are at school, they're flushing their toilets, not ours. So the plant's good. It ran perfectly. We didn't lose any turbidity. I'm confident that plant will produce more than 100 houses, probably 200-300 houses the way it is right now. And I haven't seen the conversion study, so I don't know what it says.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent McGill. Chief Ham, would you like to present your report?
First of all, I'd like to thank all of the members of the Union Bay Fire Department for their continued efforts during the COVID pandemic in training and response. And I would also like to thank the citizens of Union Bay for their diligence in keeping the virus at bay. I haven't heard of any cases in Union Bay at all, so that's a good thing. Now, the annual report for 2019-2020, I'm not going to read through it. If people have a copy, they can peruse it, and it's on our website, I believe. It states our mission, you know, what we do, firefighter training, fire protection, medical assistance, rescue services for car accidents, emergency scene management of complex emergency scenes, and public education. In the report, there is a picture and the names of our members. We have our incident response, overall comparisons for about 4 or 5 years there. As you can see, that most of our response calls are medical and the first responder category. Our training, there's new standards in the province for training. There's the Office of the Fire Commissioner has put out a document called the Playbook. And the playbook states there are 3 levels that you can train to, and that's, and we train to the highest level, which is the full service level. And we train our firefighters to the NFPA 1001-2 standard for professional firefighters. We currently have 20 members, and of course training is ongoing, and COVID has really put a damper on how we do things to train. When we couldn't get face-to-face at all, the training had pretty much stopped except for online training and meetings. We're back to some face-to-face stuff now. Our medical response level of training is to the highest level. It's the level 3, first responder. That's emergency medical assistant category. And they're trained fully in spinal defibrillation and first aid, of course. Usually about this time of the year, we start to think about fire prevention and Fire Prevention Week. There's nothing in the books for this year on that because of the COVID pandemic. But we do have some, our Firefighters Association is trying to look into something that we could do that would get out into the community at least and show our face. And this year I believe it's kitchen safety is the topic for Fire Prevention Week. We have been out in the community here and in Courtenay with the school district and stuff, helping with fire extinguisher training. We've had a number of open house events at the hall where I'm sure many of you have been. Our capacity for members is a maximum of 30. We're currently at 20, so we are in an active recruit on that front. So if anybody knows of anybody or anybody themselves wants to come down on Tuesday night and meet some of the guys and gals and pick up an application, you're more than welcome to do that. I don't really have a whole lot more. Can I take questions now if there are any?
If there are any questions from the board, let's take those now. Any questions from the public, let's hold them till the end. Trustee Harrelson.
Yeah, Ian, I have one question. I was going through signing checks today, et cetera, for second date. And I am very happy to see that you've gone forward replacing a lot of the equipment that you need and a lot of changeover because of our new firefighters. I think that is wonderful. You have the funds, you're using it, and you're using it in the best way possible. Thank you.
We do have a number of purchases. We have some PPE that is required. That has been purchased, 6 sets. We need about 18 over 2 years, so about 6 sets a year for the next 3 years. Although this report was out before most of that came to light, we've had some equipment on the trucks replaced. We're currently getting some quotes on piston valves and hydrant conversion kits. The generator for the hall, the backup generator, that allows us to run in a power outage with our mapping systems, and the hall had to be replaced, so that's ongoing right now. And our primary pumper is 25 years old now, and it has a maximum life of 30, so we have a 5-year window now to start the process of the FRP and getting a new engine underway. And most of the firefighters are pretty excited about the opportunity for input into a new fire hall, although I haven't heard a whole lot of what's going on with that lately, but I've been told that we own the property, but that's the last I've heard about that. So thank you for your question and your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Ham. Next item on the agenda is the presentation of the audited financial statements for the year ending December 31st, 2019, and for that we have Graham Roberts from Myers Norris Penny Accounting. I think we'll need a microphone for you.
Yeah, as Miss Swanson started off there, the audit was done a little differently this year. We started doing field work on, I think it was a Tuesday or whatever, and halfway through the day, things were ramping up in the province about COVID awareness and things slowing down. So we were at site for one day because we just determined it was not appropriate for us to be doing it on site. So we did this audit remotely, so we'd do our sampling and things are done electronically. So it was a different experience for all of us. But at the end of the audit process, we have a clean opinion of the financial records for the improvement district. So it's a clean audit opinion. So let's go over some quick highlights of the actual financial results. So if you see page 1 of the financial statements, consolidated statement of financial position. So this is the actual snapshot date of the different balance sheet accounts that the improvement district had. So when you lump cash and investments, which investments here are just GICs and term deposits, it's the total is just over $2.5 million, which is actually down $400,000. The reason for that is we had a major capital project going on. Receivables, so receivables have increased as well. You can see in note 3, it has a breakdown of that, and that's been talked about previously about the increase in water tolls and parcel taxes. So you can see that water tolls receivables at December year end increased by about just under 20,000, and parcel taxes had increased by about $43,000. GST receivable, a big increase there, because that's your input tax credits for the GST paid on the water treatment plant, so that's why that's a big increase there. So accounts payable, also a big increase, and that's primarily driven, and you can see note 4, which is on page 7, big increase in the trades payable, and that's again related to the water treatment plant. The December bill for work in progress comes in January, so you got a big payable there of 400,000+. Then you also had your construction pullbacks of almost 300,000. Wages payable increase there is just a timing issue. This year is the full 2 weeks of accrual was set up for payroll, so people worked up to December 31st, but they weren't paid until January, so it's actually a payable. So that's a big change there. So construction loans, so that's obviously for the new water treatment plant. Talk about that a little bit later. So net financial assets, so that's your financial assets less your financial liabilities. So you can see there's a big reduction there, right? That's again water treatment plant. So we used up the available cash for the improvement district first, then we took on the loan, so the cash got reduced, and we took on the loan, so that caused a reduction in your net financial assets, but it is still positive. I would anticipate that may switch into a negative position next year because of the actual full debt will be taken out for the water treatment plant. Commitments, just the commitment note there is some obligations put by the improvement districts at December 31st. So a big part of that was the decommissioning of the old water treatment plant and the existing contract that was outstanding for the remaining of the project, the water treatment plant. So non-financial assets, so tangible capital assets, large increase there, and that's, in this year under examination, there's almost $3.4 million of water treatment plant that was added to the improvement district. Okay. So on the revenues and expense side, everything was pretty similar to the prior year, within prior year or budgeted amounts, so no real anomalies to point out there. So you can see at the end of the year a positive surplus of $473,000. So improvement from the prior year. Big chunk of that improvement is a gain on the sale of the land, though. So I'm going to jump to, where do I want to jump to? Schedule 3. So Schedule 3 breaks down all the different funds and operations into the revenue and expenses and sort of the ending surpluses in each of the different funds. So you can see the operating fund actually has a surplus, but then we transfer some monies to some of our reserves and stuff like that. So a big part would be for the restricted water and fire, and that's a budgeted process. That transfer as part of the board adopting the budget each year. Capital asset transitions. So you can see the operating fund has been charged over $1 million for capital expenditures. And that's because at December 31st, there's $700,000 of the water treatment plants in accounts payable. So it hasn't been funded through a loan yet. And so that's actually sort of overstated the deficit, because if you add back that $700,000, you still would have a operating surplus of about $190,000 in the operating fund. So you can see also in the other one I want to point out, the restricted water renewal fund. You can see that $700,000 was drawn out of the fund during the past year, and that again was to help fund the water treatment plant. So, and you can see the fire department, it was talked about that. You can see there's $1.4 million put aside for fire department expansion as well. And that's my quick high-level review of the financial statements.
Thank you for that. So we're on to the new business portion of the agenda, the first of which is a motion to approve the 2019-20 AGM staff reports, including the chair report. Can I have a motion to accept those reports? And a second? Any discussion prior to moving to a vote to accept, to approve? All in favor? Okay, and the second item on the agenda is a motion to approve the 2019 auditor's report from Myers Norris Penny LLP. Can I have a motion? And second? Any further discussion before moving to a vote? All in favor? Okay, the third item of new business is a motion to approve 2020-2021 trustee remuneration at the same level as 2019-2020. Can I have a motion, please? Okay, second? Discussion. All in favor? And the last item of new business is a motion to set the date for the inaugural meeting of the new board for Thursday, September 17th, 2020 at 2:30 p.m. I'll move that we set that agenda, that the inaugural meeting for that date. Any second? All in favor? Okay, and that is the formal part of the new business agenda, and we would now move to landowner questions. We'll have a bit of a juggling act here a bit, I think, because we may have questions coming both from the floor and from our live meeting, which we should see. Okay, they won't end up there? So you will just read them out or whatever they are? Okay, thank you. So are there any questions coming in as of yet from the live stream? Okay, so a question from the floor. Do we have a microphone that the floor can use and a wipe to make sure it stays sterile? They've got them? Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would like to thank Trustees Haraldson and Trustee Bitton and Dan McGill for the support and the work that they put into bringing the new water plant online. And I know that from personal experience. My question is, regards to the government study. Can I have some assurance from the board that should they determine that this will go ahead, that the landowners will make that decision and not the board?
Thank you for that question. This has obviously been a topic of discussion. I mentioned it a bit in my chair report, and we've been certainly having discussions as a board, but also with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing as to, they're the ones that funded the study, and they're the ones that make any orders in cabinet that would be required to have UBID convert to a service area of CVRD. And in short, what the ministry requires is, in order for that, is a indication of strong support from the landowners. There are ways of doing that which can, there's numbers of ways of that happening. The most definitive way of that happening would be a referendum where the landowners vote. We've got a new board forming next week. I think I could put it to this board as to what they would say about referendum. I'm not sure that would be fair to the new board, right? But I can tell you personally that I would rather the landowners make the decision than the board make the decision. And that's because we all need to support whatever decision gets made. And, it's 700 people get a say, or 700 parcels of land get a say, or 5 people get a say. And to me, it makes sense that we would try to have the greatest representation and that strongest show of support available to say which way do we want to go. What could get in the way of that? I think the only thing that I can see that is on the table right now is a pandemic, right? We're able to gather in a way now. We had a plan to conduct an election that was approved by our chief election officer, was supported by BC Health guidelines. So a referendum is simply an election. So as long as the conditions aren't dramatically different from what we're seeing right now, the conditions for a referendum should exist. I'm being deliberately non-committal to it because it is a decision that an entire board takes, but it is also a decision that is being closely watched and guided by the ministry. The CVRD will have something to say as well because they have to vote to accept a conversion as well, right? So I think we have to trust in this process of making sure that due diligence and appropriate consultation and strong support is solicited. So I'll stop there. Did that answer your question? Is there another portion I can answer?
Well, there are several different methods of doing this. You can use a negative, what's called a negative vote. In other words, you put it out there, and if you don't get any more than a certain percentage of people saying, no, we don't want it, then it flies, right? With COVID now, we can still have a referendum and use mail-in ballots. We'll probably be doing that anyway, I would think. So that shouldn't be too big a problem. My concern is that I want to make sure that the landowners of Union Bay who pay the freight are the ones that ultimately decide whether we go with the CVRD or not. And I would caution that with some people, be careful what you wish for. It might not be what you want at the end.
So I hear you, and all 5 board members for our new board are in the room, so you've been heard. And I think
Thank you, sir.
that's the best we can do. There's a question at the back of the room. Susan, can we just make sure you get the microphone there so we can all hear you, as can the people online?
And over the past few years, we've done fundraising and that to put towards the new fire hall, which will be built at some time, hopefully soon. But if we become part of the regional district, do those funds get taken over by the regional district and doled out as they see fit, or are they left for us to use to build our fire hall?
Thank you for your question. It's a prescribed way when a improvement district converts to a regional district, in that the services offered by, the services that are offered by the current improvement district are transferred into individual service areas of the regional district. So we would transfer a water service, our water service, into a water service area. We would transfer our fire service into a fire service area, and those would be unique to Union Bay. And all assets and liabilities of the current services remain with that service area. So the funds that are raised or exist for fire halls, for fire service, remain in the fire service area. It's just, that's the way it all happens. So essentially the costs of the costs and revenues associated with delivering a service remain the responsibility of the tax holders. Or taxpayers, sorry, the landowners. Did that answer your question, Susan?
It'll be our money in their bank, and we never access to it.
That is succinctly summarized.
Our money in our account under their administration. I think that's.
It's our money. It is managed, it's just managed by a different entity, right? In service of the same objectives. Other questions? Are there any questions coming in online? I wonder if we need to inform people how to do that. Okay. For those who may be listening online, look for the chat function on your YouTube and type in any questions you might have. Question from the floor.
No? Well, my mouth
There
is
we go.
almost at it.
There we go.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, I was on a walk in my area, and I saw water gushing out of somebody's yard near their meter, and I called it. This was after hours, and I called them, and I was asked if it was an emergency. Otherwise, I'd be charged for the call. So I was a little nonplussed at first and said, "That's up to you to determine whether it's an emergency. I'm telling you what I see." And so I'm wondering if such a question was given to the person answering the phone by the board, and whether that would dissuade people from calling in when they see leaks, because it could be on a weekend and you see water in front of a person's yard wet and, been there for every time you go for a walk, so you know there's something wrong. And so who's going to say whether it's an emergency or not?
Dan, can I put you on the spot?
Yes. We get calls for cleaning ditches, we get calls because They're trying to establish, is it a real emergency for just water, correct? And they're not water operators, so they don't really know what's going on. But if you ever see water obviously pouring out anywhere, then by all means, give us a call.
And to clarify,
Situation where there was construction done in the area of water repair, and I wasn't informed that the water was going to be off almost all day. As it turned out, it wasn't all day. But just to say, it was a very delicate situation I was in, and I want to thank you
Yeah, I remember.
for getting me some drinking water so I could wash my hair.
Yeah.
I was coloring my hair, and I was told it was going to be on for the next 6 hours or something. So that was a problem. So I'm saying, you know, if a notice could be put at the coming in, someone suggested maybe in the subdivision, the way they used to do when there's a boil water, and you know, so that people in the small area like that would know that it's going to be off for a long time, not an hour or so.
Yes, sometimes we get the advantage of you know, preparing for the job. Sometimes we don't. We just cannot dictate when things are going to go bad. So we try to get it on the website. What happens to me when I'm doing the repair is my phone's ringing off the hook and I'm not even working anymore. I'm answering emergency phone calls. So I know it's a pain in the butt when you've got some chemicals in your hair and it's hard getting it out with bottled water that I brought you. But yeah, it's Christmas Eve at 8 o'clock. We'll get a call with people without water. There's just no way we can determine when these breaks are going to happen. Some happen and they're not so big of breaks, and we can say we're going to be there on Tuesday and we can put something online. But I would say 75-80% of the chance we don't get that opportunity.
But some people may not be online. I was just wondering.
I agree. I don't know how else we would do it. If I had to go door to door, then you'd be out of water for 12 hours, not 2 hours.
No, but just like when there's a boiled water, if a notice, a piece of cardboard notice or something in the entrance of the area could be helpful.
Yeah, so when we had the boil notice go up, we had all our staff working to get those signs up and to get things online and even on the radio and whatnot. With the water leaks, it just doesn't happen that way. They don't call me up and tell me they're going to blow up. So it's tough, and your neighborhood gets it more than any other neighborhood in the entire system. Oh, you're welcome, Elaine.
are there other questions? Question over here.
I don't think I need to know. I just want you to ask, are you going to tell us anything about Union Bay Estates?
Yeah, I understand that. What is it specifically that you would like to know?
What the hell is happening?
It's not, you know, this board is responsible for water, fire, and all that. And so it's not within our purview to speak of that.
All I'm asking is, we see it, and it's advertised at the ferry terminals on the mainland and everything, but just try and get some information. I'm told that the marina is going to go ahead, this is going to go ahead, and that's going ahead, but it's not official. So all I'm asking, simple question, if you don't have any information, that's okay. We'll get it someday.
We don't really have a lot of information because it's not something we are focused on, right? We're focused on understanding, you know, perhaps how many homes are coming online in Union Bay this year, so we understand how much water is going to be required or the number of services that have to be installed, right? So we've been through some reviews of that nature with when we have an interlock with the Comox Valley Regional District Board. And so we do understand that there are a small number of homes, I think somewhere in the range of 40 to 45 homes planned to come online in the next year or so. But that is really what was communicated to us. With respect to what's happening right now, you and I are in the same boat.
Okay, thanks very much.
Any further questions? And just checking in online again, nothing?
Somebody just do a test question. I'm dying to know if it actually works. Anybody out there? Okay.
There are no questions then, and so if that's the case, then I think we're...
I think there was one.
Oh,
The question is, will the new board use working committees? And that's by Paul Allard.
the answer to that question is we will have to answer it when we form the new board. Because I am one voice on that board, and there will be 5 voices. There are constituted working committees, working committees is a different name. I was thinking standing committees. So perhaps we need a little bit of clarification from Paul on what he means, right? But we do have project committees at times as well. Like, for example, Chief Ham is in the process of recommending a committee that would help in the selection and purchase of a new fire truck. And we'll use them for that purpose when we need specific expertise and inputs from people who aren't on the board. With respect to standing committees, we've had them in the past, and I think Trustee Calder would like to say something about that.
I just want to add, in terms of a working committee, in terms of a working committee, we have just very successfully been working on the conversion committee with the province and the regional district and the area A director. So that was a very successful committee, and a lot of work went into that. So that's an example, just an example of a working committee.
Yes, and I was remiss in not mentioning that, because that will continue into the new board, because that committee has not yet closed down. Any other questions?
But thank you for the question.
Yes, thank you. I was remiss in that there was something that was not on the agenda that I had made a handwritten note for and I did not address under new business. And that was that in general in these meetings we make a motion to appoint our external auditors for the upcoming year, and we did not do that. So I would like to revisit that and come back and make a motion to appoint Myers Norris Penny LLC as our external auditors for 2020 fiscal year. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay. Now that I've corrected my error, we can move towards adjournment of the meeting. And move to adjourn this meeting. Second. All in favor? Thank you to everybody for attending and for your interest in Union Bay Improvement District, and we hope to be able to continue to serve in the future.